Keeper of the Lost Cities, Chapter 27. At first, all Sophie felt was thick, scratchy black, poking and prodding and pressing against her mental barriers. She tried to fight back, but the shadows were relentless, and the coldest ones found a way to seep through. Images followed, as sharp and clear as normal memories, but they were wrong. Every color felt off, every sound felt distorted. It felt like reality had been stripped and smashed and reassembled into something else. Something terrifying. Trees rained from gray-green clouds, their dark branches reaching for her like clawed hands as they fell. Beasts sprang from a ground lit with stars, bared their fangs, and chased her across the sky-covered hills. Glowing eyes peeked through bushes covered in blue ears, and butterflies with bright red lips whispered sounds like mush. Sophie searched for some clue, some key to translate what she was seeing, but there seemed to be no rhyme or reason for anything, just the twisted thoughts of a twisted mind. The images tangled, colliding, coiling around her, pulling her deeper. She whipped through more darkness and fell into the streets of a ruined city. The clouded and cracked crystal buildings were a hodgepodge of structures Sophie had seen throughout the lost cities. The swirling castles from Eternalia, sandwiched among the silver-tipped spires from Atlantis, mixed with gleaming mansions that wrapped around the pyramid of Foxfire. There was a fountain in the center of it all, two golden figures standing in a round pool, holding hands as colored streams of water showered them from every direction. A shadow of a girl appeared between them and took off through the buildings, shattering everything she touched, before she dove into a sea of shards. Sophie plunged after her. Down, down she sank, feeling Prentice's mind turn colder, thicker, as she landed in a blank space, void of any sound or color, a bubble of nothing. She pressed against the sides, but a force slammed her back. Then a face appeared in front of her, pale and featureless, except for two teal jewel eyes. The more she stared into them, the more her head spun, until she couldn't tell which way was up or down, or where she'd come from, or how to get back. "No reason to worry," the face whispered, as laughter erupted around her. The sound was young and childish at first, then deep and dark as the face shattered into a million tiny flecks that surrounded her, stinging like needles. Some part of her mind knew she wasn't actually being touched, but that didn't make the pain any less real. She wanted to scream or cry or call for help, but she had no mouth, no voice. She was just a blip of consciousness, a bodiless mind. The needless of light turned electric, zapping the tiny shocks over and over until the only reality she knew was their pricks and pain. She was trapped, stuck in the nightmare world where shadows tricked and light attacked, and she was nothing, no one. No, she was someone, but who was she? It was a question she used to know, but the answer felt like it had been erased by the panic and pain, shoved out of her reach, beyond the burning lights. She had to find it, even if it was hard, even if it hurt. She pushed through the shards of light, letting them scrape and singe and strip more of her consciousness away. And then she was falling down, 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 with no end in sight, dropping so far she knew she'd never pull herself up. But without the tormenting stings, she found the answer to her question. "I am Sophie Foster." She transmitted the words to make them more real, and a thin strand of white light cut through the black. She wrapped her mind around it, clinging to the lifeline and hovering in the dark with no idea where to go or what to do. The cord of light flickered, then a whisper of warmth trickled around her, building to a hum as the shadows bent and twisted into a shape. A dark bird, a black swan. It spread its wings and dove. Sophie watched it fall, wondering if she could trust it. Let the past be your guide. She released her hold on the strand of light, falling, 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 so fast, so hard. She caught up with the swan. She grabbed its wings and held on tight as it swooped and swept and swerved, finally crashing into a world of sunlight and blue sky and green grassy hills. But the world was too bright, too shimmering, almost blinding. The swan, now a real bird, tumbled with Sophie across soft ground until they collided with the legs of a woman, knocking her down. A musical laugh rang through the air as she fell into the tangled heap. Then she pulled herself free, cradling the flapping swan in her arms, and whispering her for it to be calm. She looked about 20, with long blonde hair that hung in soft waves and a violet gown. Sophie had never seen her before, but something felt familiar about her, especially when she smiled. The smile made her turquoise blue eyes sparkle the exact way Adeline's eyes did, in the rare moments when she broke free from her grief. Jolie. Can you see me? Sophie transmitted, knowing it was crazy. Jolie didn't respond. Instead, she looked back at the swan, waddling at her feet, and reached to stroke its black feathers. I don't understand, Sophie transmitted, wishing she could scream when silence was the only response. What does this mean? Jolie laughed. It will be okay. Her voice was so similar to Adeline's, Sophie felt chills. Jolie turned toward her then, and the clarity in her stare felt different than the other visions, like it wasn't a dream or a memory this time. We have to trust, she told Sophie, her smile fading. Trust what? Trust who? Jolie didn't say. She just glanced at the sky and said, You have to go. How? And what are you doing here? What does this mean? She swept up the swan with long, graceful arms and tossed it into the bright white cloud. Follow the pretty bird across the sky. The swan spread her wide black wings and flapped as the scene splintered to dust. But the shadows that rushed in pushed Sophie up instead of down. Shards of memories tried to grab her as she rose, but she was moving too fast, blurring through the darkness until it turned gray, and then white, and then she was back in her body, gasping and heaving, and thrashing inside two strong arms that held her in a vice-like grip. Don't you ever do that again, Alden shouted,